Hello my darlings, welcome back to my channel. Boy did I find a story for you today. Today we're going to talk about Joseph Miller. Joseph was born in Steelton, Pennsylvania on September 2nd, 1964. Now, he was a slow learner. He suffered from low-grade amnesia, so he wasn't able to remember small details about certain things. And that caused him to be bullied in school, all the time. Now, because of his struggles in school and the bullying, he dropped out of school after completing 4th grade. He was raised in an emotional and physically abusive home where his parents didn't give him the love and attention a child did need. He claims he was also molested by his uncle during that time. Now, in 1976, Joseph, at 12 years old, got into a street fight with other children. That caused him to run home, and he thought it was a good idea to get his father's shotgun, and he chased down the kids who beat him up, and he shot at them. Now, none of them had life-threatening injuries, but authorities did catch up to Joseph, and he was placed in a juvenile delinquent facility. Now, during the time that he was in there, of course, he got beat up and pushed around by not only by the other delinquents that were in the facility, but by also the guards who ran the place. They say this caused Joseph to have PTSD. In 1980, he was actually released, and shortly after his release, he got into major drug use and other crimes such as theft, arson, and illegal possession of firearms. I mean, just all around a good guy, you know? In 1984, he moved from Steelton to Harrisburg, and that's where he met his wife, and they had 3 children together. Now, he had a hard time maintaining his job due to his low IQ or his lack of education. He was arrested again on August 6, 1992, for assaulting Claire Johnson. Now, she was one of his 3 known survivors. Claire was waiting for a cab outside of a local pub in Harrisburg. When Miller and his friends saw her, they offered her a ride. Now, later on, Miller dropped off his friend, and at that point, Clara asked Miller to drop her back off at the pub. She didn't want to be alone with him. He promised her that he would drop her off, but he just wanted to run to the store first to get cigarettes. So he ran to the nearest convenience store. After he came out, he got back in, and he drove the opposite direction of where she wanted to go. Now, Claire begged and pleaded for him to turn around and take her back to the pub. He still refused to do so. At that point, he started to drive erratically at dangerously high speeds. Now, Clara then attempted to jump out of the vehicle, and Miller slammed on the brakes and temporarily knocked her unconscious. Later on, she was able to get out of the car. He then attempted to run her over. She was able to get away. He caught up with her about a half a mile down the road. He struck her in the head and face and then raped her. Afterwards, he tied her up using duct tape and decided to sit down and relax and have a beer and a smoke. It was during that time frame that he admitted to her that he had killed other women before, and he said women were nothing to him. They were all the same. It didn't matter to him whether they lived or died. After he gets done talking, he rapes her again and then puts duct tape around her wrists and her mouth and decides to pick her up and carry her back to the car. It was at that point in time a security officer actually came across the scene. Miller ran. He left everything behind. He was actually identified with his car's registration. And the next day, police went to his home where they attempted to take him into custody. But he was able to escape police once again by running across the apartment building roof. Now, police had him cornered there for about 6 hours as he continued to threaten suicide by jumping off the structure. He was eventually taken into custody, where he had pled guilty to indecent assault, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and attempted murder charges in the attack of Clara Johnson. During his interview, while in custody, he admitted to the 2 previous separate occasions he told Clara about. One was done in 1987, where he picked up Selena Franklin and her friends. He dropped her friends off at their homes, and then he drove to the landfill, where she consented to have sex with him for $35. Afterwards, he used an electrical insulator he found nearby, and he hit her in the head multiple times until she died. He then took the money out of her pocket before leaving. 2 days later, he goes back to the body and he moved it and covered it up with debris from the landfill. He also confessed to killing Stephanie McDuffie in 1989. He had picked her up at a local bar and drove her to the landfill's access road where they consensually had sex, and then he beat her to death with a pipe that he had from one of the old cars. He then drove her down to the landfill where he covered her body in shingles and tires. Stephanie, unfortunately, was 8.5 months pregnant at this time. In 1990, 2 years prior to this, Jeanette Thomas remains were found in the landfill. A man by the name of William Kelly Jr. confessed to killing Miss Thomas. He confessed because multiple people saw him leaving the bar with her, and he also suffered from blackouts. He didn't have the ability to decipher facts from fiction. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 to 20 years for the crime. The discovery of the 2 other bodies caused the investigation to open up again for Miss Thomas, and they were able to find DNA evidence linking Miller to the crime. Due to this new evidence of Kelly's innocence, the prosecutors moved to vacate the conviction, and he was granted release in 1993. Joseph Miller was convicted on March 25, 1993, for the murders of Selena Franklin and Stephanie McDuffie, as well as the kidnapping and indecent assault of Clara Johnson. He was sentenced to death. Later on, his death sentence was vacated as his attorneys successfully argued that he could not be executed because he was mentally disabled. 4 years later, in 1997, another woman was found in the same area of Franklin and McDuffie. She was later identified as Kelly Ann Ward. She was 26 years old, and she went missing in Harrisburg on February of 1986. Due to the similarities in the case, Miller was the prime suspect, and he later confessed to the killings in the 2016 video interview. In 1992, he did confess to these killings, but he was never charged as he was already on death row. In June of 2016, he was taken to trial and he was given 2 additional life sentences. Miller is alive and currently resides in the State Correctional Facility at Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. So what do you guys think? Should he have been given the death sentence or not? Pennsylvania still has the death penalty, but the last person ever to have been executed was in 1976. Maybe that'll be my next video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should I do that? Please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Until we meet again, please take care, stay safe, and thanks for listening.